Hi, my name is Kenny Koku. I welcome you graciously to this episode of One Verse Inspiration. Today we need to look at a very common scripture, but uncommon scripture in the sense that sometimes the common becomes most uncommon when we de-emphasize them and seem to emphasize the more things that we feel are uncommon. Matthew chapter 7, beginning from verse 24, the scripture says there, therefore everyone who hears these words of mine and acts on them may be compared to a wise man who built his house on a rock. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and slammed against that house. Yet it did not fall, for it had been founded on a rock. And then he said, everyone who hears these words of mine and does not act on them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and slammed against that house. And it fell, and great was its crash.
My life would be the same. Just a word.
Wisdom is in application. Wisdom is not in acquisition. Wisdom is not in assimilation. Wisdom is not in interpretation. Wisdom is not in exhibition of knowledge. Wisdom is in applying the things what you have heard. The things that you have heard. That's what causes a person to pass the exam, when you can reproduce what you have learned. Now, wisdom is in an application, and that's poignant. That's what I want to bring out today in our time together, is that he said, the wind came, the floods came, and they beat on that house, and it fell. But it concerning the wise man, because his house was founded on a rock. He said the wind came, the floods came, they beat on that house, and it did not fall because it was founded upon a rock. Now, the unwise or foolish person built on the sand, and then this one built on the rock. The same circumstances befell them. That's what I wanted to bring out the fact. The wind came, the floods came. So we see in life, being obedient or being religious or being faithful will not stop the floods from coming, will not prevent the winds from beating on the house. The challenges of life will always come, whether you are building on the rock or building upon the sand. The challenges will be there, whether you are obedient or disobedient, whether you are humble or proud. Challenges will come. If it doesn't come as a flood, it will come as a violent wind. If it doesn't come like a wind, it may come like an earthquake. If it doesn't come like an earthquake, it may come as a fire. Listen, they will always come. The only thing that determines the effect of the flood or the wind or whatever crisis a person will face is how prepared he is in terms of the application, the things in knowledge he has applied, in the terms of response to what knowledge you have received. That's what determines it. You see, in the life of the young man Joseph, there was an issue. And I want you to remember that seriously, because he spoke and talked about the famine that was going to come through the whole world, and he said there was going to be 7 years of boom, and then there were going to be 7 years of famine. And he said, you're going to select a man or set a structure in place, that's to Pharaoh, set a structure in place to conserve the harvest of the first 7 years of boom, so that when the 7 years of deprivation, famine, and drought hit the world, you will have something to bank on. Now, because Pharaoh heeded him and built barns and built reservation centers to gather warehouses, all kinds of warehouses, to store the products of the 7 years. When the 7 years of leanness came, they were able to have a fallback. This was because of the correct application of something learned. And that's the problem we have in our dispensation. We are exposed by floods, we are exposed by earthquakes, we are exposed by vagaries of life. because we don't apply enough of what we learn. It's not about learning new things. It's about doing something with those things which you have learned. Let your life be a life that is application oriented. Don't have this digest kind of mind that wants to be full of knowledge and to be considered to be knowledgeable in every field. But when people come to you, there is no product. There is no product, no evidence of wisdom. No evidence that your life, being a good administrator, of your time, of your talent, of your treasures. How do you relate with your children? The children God has given to you. How do you relate with your subordinates? Do you trash them anyhow? Do you have respect for those who are in authority? What is your attitude like? Are you growing every day in your relationships with people? Or are you just growing big, full of knowledge? When we start a conversation, you start Genesis to Revelation, you add the concordance, you are the encyclopedia of knowledge. That's all you know. But in application, nothing is working. Nothing is working. Of all the things you know, nothing is working. You have to change that digest kind of mind and pursue an application-oriented life. And so we say, hear the words, act on them. Act on the knowledge you have. A man who applies 8% of 10 things he knows will be much more productive than a man who applies 20% of the 100 that he knows. A word is enough for the wise. Thank you for listening. I'll come your way again. But until I come again, ask yourself, what measure of wisdom have you applied to the things you've learned? Or are you still getting new knowledge without applying the previous ones? God will give you the grace to overcome every lethargy. God will give you the grace to soar in terms of application and less of knowledge. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Speak, Lord. Speak, Lord.